Do you need a place to let it all out tonight? Even as the words left Trang's mouth, she felt disgusted with herself, but she had no other choice. The man glanced at her, raising an eyebrow. How much? She hesitated. Her voice trembled slightly. Would $1,000 be okay? He let out a dry chuckle. All right. Without another word, he took her hand and pulled her out of the noisy karaoke bar. The flashing lights, the cheap cologne, the laughter that wasn't real. All of it disappeared as they stepped into the silence of a luxury hotel lobby. Trang was a hostess at the karaoke lounge, a place where flirtation was part of the job. But this was her first time actually going with a client. This man was her first. Only desperation had pushed her this far. He checked in, handed her a room card, and led her upstairs. Once inside, he shut the door behind them. His voice was deep, detached. Go take a shower, clean yourself up. She grabbed a towel and walked straight to the bathroom. Under the hot water, she scrubbed herself thoroughly. She couldn't afford to disappoint him, not if she wanted to walk away with the promised money. When she came out, wrapped in the towel, he was already waiting on the bed, still damp from his own shower. He wore nothing but a towel around his waist. Despite the situation, he seemed in no rush. Calm, almost contemplative. He looked to be in his early 30s, the kind of man who hadn't married yet, but clearly had needs. Maybe he hadn't found the right person. Maybe this was how he coped. After all, it was a kind of transaction, a job for some. Trang sat on the edge of the bed, unsure. She was nervous. What if she did something wrong? He asked. How old are you? She met his gaze, startled. 22. She looked even younger than that. If life had been different, she might have been finishing college by now. But girls in this line of work rarely had that luxury. How many times have you done this? He asked, sounding oddly curious. Trang hesitated. Should she say it was her first time? Would he believe her? Probably not. She just shook her head silently. He chuckled. So, this is your first? Another shake of the head. Still silent. He laughed suddenly and then lay back on the bed. Please me tonight, he said casually. And I'll give you $5,000. Her heart leapt. $5,000 was a fortune to her. She blushed, leaned forward and kissed his chest, fingers fumbling with the towel at his waist. The man revealed beneath the fabric made her hands freeze. She moved awkwardly, unsure of herself. He frowned, watching her. Was she truly inexperienced? Or just pretending? He figured it was probably an act. Girls in this business knew exactly how to make a man feel good, unless they were trying to play the innocent for sympathy. She stared at him, hands hesitant, when her phone suddenly rang, the shrill sound piercing the air like a blade. The ringtone pulled her back to reality. Just a moment, please, she said softly, grabbing the phone from her purse. He didn't know what the caller said, but after a brief exchange, her demeanor changed completely. She rushed to get dressed, mumbling, I'm sorry, not tonight. I need to get to the hospital. Can I call you tomorrow? Hospital? At this hour? He muttered to himself, confused. What kind of girl runs off to a hospital at midnight? Maybe fate had only meant for them to meet, not to spend the night together. She finished dressing, pulled a small notepad and pen from her purse, scribbled her number, and handed it to him. Call me tomorrow. I'll come, I promise. Then she was gone. He sat up and began getting dressed, the moment ruined. The tension, the desire, vanished. Still, he folded the slip of paper with her number and tucked it into his pocket. He figured he might need it someday. As he stepped out of the hotel, he saw the same girl from earlier standing anxiously by the entrance. His brows furrowed. What now? She looked embarrassed. It's already past 11. I can't get a ride home. He considered ignoring her. After all, it wasn't his problem. But the midnight breeze, though not freezing, was enough to make a young woman in a skimpy outfit shiver. Where do you need to go? He asked. Her face lit up. Really, thank you so much. As they got into the car, he couldn't help but wonder. Did I do something in a past life to deserve being tangled up with a troublesome girl like this? She gave him directions to the hospital. As soon as he pulled up outside, she barely got the words of thanks out before jumping from the car and running inside. He was about to drive off when he noticed something. Damn it. Her purse was still on the passenger seat. Cursing under his breath, he opened the door and followed her in. But she had dashed off so quickly, and he didn't even know her name. Calling out was useless. so reluctantly he trailed her from a distance. She led him to the pediatric ward. From where he stood, he could see her rushing into a room and immediately embracing a small child, no more than 3 or 4 years old, who sat curled up on the hospital bed. She held the boy tightly, gently soothing him. A nurse passing by noticed him lingering outside. "Are you a friend of Trang's?" she asked. It caught him off guard. Trang. So that was her name. He didn't respond. The nurse studied him, then added, "That's her son." "Her son?" he repeated quietly. "Yes, she's his mother." She looked so young, couldn't be more than 22, and she had a child this age. A single mother? Probably. If she had a husband, would she really be out there, doing that kind of work? The nurse seemed to sense his silent judgment. "She doesn't want anyone's pity," she said softly. "But she and her son have it rough. Really rough." He didn't know how to reply. There was a knot in his chest, something unfamiliar twisting inside him. "If you're really her friend," the nurse went on, "please don't look down on her. That little boy, he's a sweetheart, so well behaved." He tried to shake off the words. "What's wrong with the boy?" he asked. "Leukemia. He's waiting for a bone marrow match." His breath caught. "So that's why she needed the money." "What about the father?" he asked. "Doesn't he help at all?" The nurse shook her head. "He's never been in the picture." For a moment, a memory flashed. His own mother. A single mom who raised him without help, though she'd been lucky. He had always been healthy. If he'd been sick, really sick, would she have been pushed into something like this just to save him? The thought hit harder than he expected. Maybe Trang wasn't a burden after all. Maybe she wasn't reckless or manipulative. Maybe she was just a mother doing whatever she could to keep her child alive. The urge to help her, quiet but persistent, began to take root. Inside the room, Trang sat beside the boy, gently rocking him until he fell asleep. Then, as softly as she could, she laid him down and kissed his cheek. "Even if I lose everything, I'll never give up on you." He watched the scene from the hallway, heart tightening. Something in him shifted. And then she noticed her purse was missing. Where did it go? Stay calm, think logically. She was sure she had it when he dropped her off earlier. She clearly remembered still carrying her bag at the hotel entrance. Well, whatever. If it's lost, it's lost. There wasn't anything valuable in it anyway. Just 2 fake lipsticks. Cheap knockoffs no one would bother stealing, and a bargain makeup kit that cost barely $10. Still, $10 is $10. Her son needed every cent. Even 10 could help. The thought made her shoulders droop. She picked up a plastic cup, intending to go get some water. Just as she stepped outside the ward, she saw him, and it was like spotting a lifeline. "Oh my God, you haven't left yet," she exclaimed, beaming. He lifted the small purse in his hand. "Looking for this?" She snatched it quickly. "Thank you. I'm so sorry for the trouble." He glanced at the door behind her. "Who's in there?" he asked, though he already had a feeling. It wasn't really curiosity. It was a test. You couldn't trust anyone these days. A kid outside the market begging for food might actually be a decoy for pickpockets. And in situations like this, some women would lie and say, "My nephew," or "my little cousin." Anything but "my child." But she didn't hesitate. There was no shame in her voice. "He's my son. Just turned 3. He exhaled slowly. So he hadn't misjudged her after all. "And the father?" he asked. Her face didn't change. "I don't know," she said with a small smile. "I mean it. I don't know his name, his age, what he does, or even what he looks like anymore." There was a flicker of disappointment in his eyes. Was he thinking she'd been with so many men she couldn't keep track? Or that she just didn't want to say? She caught his expression and laughed brightly. "I know what you're thinking, but whatever it is, I promise it's not what you think." That only confused him more. "You know what I'm thinking?" she nodded. "I saw it in your eyes." Then she laughed again, openly, without bitterness. "It's fine. Guys like you, people like you, you'll always look at girls like me the same way. And you know what? I've learned something over the years. Smiles can earn you money. Tears can't. So why cry?" He tilted his head. "So what makes you different from others in your line of work?" "Oh, a lot," she said quickly. "For starters, those other girls, they don't remember their clients. You were my first." She burst out laughing like she'd just told a hilarious joke. But to him, there was nothing funny about it. She was strange, this girl, strange in a way that made him curious. So he decided to play along. "There's something else that makes you different," he said. "Want me to tell you?" "I'm listening," she replied with a half smile. "They couldn't become my lover, but you could." She blinked at him, then grinned slyly. "Has anyone ever told you you're handsome, but your jokes suck?" He was caught off guard. "Why? I was being serious." She shrugged. "Exactly, that's the problem. You're rich, charming, guys like you can get anything you want. Girls like me, we're just products, disposable." He gave her a faint smile, one that carried a hint of mockery. "What?" she asked. "You think I'm hoping for more, that I want to keep seeing other clients? Of course I do." She didn't want this life. Who would choose a path like this if they had any other option? But she had none left. She desperately needed money. Without it, she couldn't afford medicine. How could her little boy keep holding on? If she'd had a proper education, a stable job, maybe they wouldn't be living in such dire poverty. Maybe she wouldn't have ended up here, on the brink of despair. She was born in a poor rural village. Her grandmother was steeped in old beliefs. Boys were treasured, girls were a burden. Her parents, trying to please the old woman, kept having children. Her mother gave birth to 4 daughters, one after another. When it came time to deliver her, the 5th, her mother bled to death on the birthing table. Partly because she was just another girl. Partly because giving birth to her had been the final straw. Her father blamed her for it. He never looked her in the eyes. Her sisters did the same. They said she was the reason their mother had died. They pushed her away, cursed her daily, all but her second sister. That one, just a few years older, had a kind heart. She protected her, cared for her, and because of that love, she managed to survive. She thought she would get to stay with her forever. But when she turned 18, 4 years ago, her grandmother fell seriously ill. The treatment cost a fortune. Her second sister, the oldest of them all, swallowed her tears and accepted a matchmaking offer to marry a stranger overseas, in Taiwan. In return, the family received a lump sum payment, just enough to cover Grandma's hospital bills. The day her sister was taken away to a foreign land was also the day she lost peace forever. She tried contacting the matchmaker who'd arranged it, but the woman scoffed and said, "Your family sold her. You've got no right to find her." Wealthy families don't want their daughters-in-law talking to poor relatives. Who even knew if her sister had married into a rich family, like the woman claimed? Maybe she was just a maid, or a surrogate. Heartbroken and cut off, she returned home to find herself unwanted once again. So she pushed through school, finished 12th grade, clutched her graduation certificate, and headed for the city. She thought this would be the turning point. She was wrong. She had believed, foolishly, that her life would turn out like those TV dramas. She'd go to college, get a great job, make money, go back to help her family, and maybe then her father would stop hating her. Most importantly, she wanted to earn enough to find her sister. But the dream shattered quickly. She was a nobody from the countryside, just a high school diploma, no glowing transcript, no teacher recommendations, not a dime in her pocket. What university would take someone like that? Broke and hopeless, she wandered the bustling city streets with an empty head and an even emptier stomach. Then she saw it. A flyer for a job at a karaoke bar. Server wanted. Naively, she thought it meant bringing fruit and drinks to guests. They called it serving, but really it meant entertaining male customers. If they asked you to drink, you drank. You didn't argue. You just didn't sleep with them. At least, not officially. By the 3rd day, she was working a private room with 2 other girls. A company celebration, maybe 7 or 8 guys, she couldn't remember. They made her drink beer. She'd never tasted alcohol before, not back home in the village. She blacked out. The next morning, she woke in an unfamiliar room. White sheets, white pillows. She was naked, alone. Next to her was a thick wad of cash, 500,000 dong. She'd never seen that much money in her life. The moment she held it in her hands, she realized what she had lost. They thought she was just another call girl, 18 and already broken by the city. She'd made a mistake, thinking the city would save her, thinking she could work jobs she wasn't old enough to understand, thinking she could just leave home, clueless about the world beyond her tiny village. Still in shock, she dressed in the clothes scattered on the floor and went back to the bar. She demanded to know who had taken her to the hotel. She wanted to throw that money in his face. Did he really think money made him entitled to everything? To her? But her boss claimed he didn't know. Said she shouldn't make a scene. It would only cause trouble. She'd been there just 3 days, but he gave her a full month's wages anyway. Hush money. Between that and the hotel cash, she had exactly 50 million dong. 50 million to buy a girl's dignity. Was that expensive or cheap? And yet, some part of her thought, this was even more than what they'd received for selling her sister. Could she use this money to buy her sister back? Of course not. The matchmaker had made that clear. Once she's there, it's done. Whether she lives or dies isn't my concern. Still, in this moment of defeat, all she wanted was to go home. Home, where no one wanted her. Where she'd lied to her friends, bragging about how loving her family was. Where no one treated her like family. But whenever people asked about her siblings, she would still proudly say she was one of 5 sisters. 5 princesses, a symbol of fortune. Right then her phone rang. The screen showed one word. Dad. Had he finally stopped hating her? Was he calling her home? Her heart fluttered with hope. Maybe she could go back. Maybe she could bring this money, dirty as it was, and help the family. Maybe, just maybe, she could still be of value. She picked up the call, only to be hit with a voice so sharp it cut through her hope like ice water poured over her head. You think you're some kind of rebel now? Running away from home like that? It wasn't her dad. It was her 3rd sister. Only a year younger than her 2nd sister. But never once had she shown her even a shred of kindness. Her voice got louder, harsher, and everything inside her began to crumble. If you're so brave, then don't ever come back. No one in this family welcomes a child who killed their own mother. Her sister's words pierced her heart like a needle, each syllable stabbing deeper into her soul. Why? Why is it that even though we share the same mother and father, they can't love me? Why did Dad create me if he was just going to ignore me? He knew. He knew I wasn't the reason Mom died. She died because her body had been worn down from giving birth to too many children, one after the other, with no time to rest or proper nutrition. When she had me, she was just too weak. She hemorrhaged and died on the delivery table. I was a victim, too. From the moment I was born, I lived without a mother's warmth. And Dad, he never once showed me affection. The only one who cared was my 2nd sister. She was my sister, my mother, my everything. She carried me through life. My 3rd sister kept ranting on the phone, but I couldn't make out a single word. My ears buzzed, drowning out her voice completely. She kept talking, not even caring why I wasn't responding. She probably thought I'd hung up to save on phone credit. Once the call ended, I yanked the SIM card out of my phone and flung it as far as I could. Right then, I made a vow. Even if I have to die on the streets, even if I become a wandering soul with no place to go, I will never, ever go back to that house again. Well, do you agree or not? What's with the long pause? His question snapped her out of her painful memories. She wiped the tears from her eyes with the back of her hand. Every time she remembered, it hurt all over again, but that's life. It's in the past now. People need to live in the present. That's what matters. She forced a smile. Are you serious? Yes, I am. Then I agree. She had feared he was just joking. But if he was serious, really serious, then it felt like a dream. It took you long enough to say yes. No, I was thinking about something else. Like what? My life. What's there to think about? Plenty. If my life were a novel, I swear, people would line up to buy it. But just so you know, I only have free time in the evenings. I work during the day. She worked at a garment factory, earning a modest, stable income, but it wasn't enough to cover hospital bills. He didn't seem to mind. Fine by me. I don't need you during the day anyway. Oh, he suddenly remembered. Take the day off from the karaoke bar tomorrow. Okay. Now that you have me, you don't need to keep going back to that place. No need to stir up the ugliness of your past. All right, I'll call when I need you. I'm heading out now. Wait. I don't even know your name. It's Hung. And just like that, she became his mistress. The events of that night felt surreal, like she'd stepped into someone else's dream. The next morning, Huang visited a coworker at the hospital. Coincidentally, the coworker was in the same ward as her son. After checking in on her friend, she walked over to her son's room. To her surprise, Hung was already there. Her little boy was sitting by the window. When he saw Hung, his whole face lit up like he'd just found a new best friend. "Are you looking for someone, mister?" "I'm a friend of your mom's. I came to visit you." Now that he was up close, Hung finally got a good look at the boy's face. There was something strangely familiar in his features. But he couldn't quite place it. "What's your name?" "Mom calls me San, like sun." "Sun?" Hung asked, puzzled. "Yeah, San, like the sun in English. Mom says I'm her sunshine." Hung blinked, taken aback for a second. Then he smiled. "That's a beautiful name. You have a beautiful name." San beamed with pride. "I think so, too." Hung found the boy incredibly endearing, just over 3 years old, yet so polite and well-spoken. Not like most rowdy kids his age. He'd always dreamed of having a child like this one day. Hung played with San for about 10 minutes, but he had to get back to work. He promised to return soon, and this time with gifts. San looked thrilled. 3 days passed. Still, not a single call from Hung. She started to wonder, did he change his mind? Did he decide I wasn't good enough, after all? She wanted to call him, but she didn't have his number. So all she could do was wait. The anxiety gnawed at her. If he was just playing with me, it would be the most humiliating thing imaginable. On the 4th night, the phone finally rang. His voice was soft, slurred, clearly drunk. He asked her to meet him at a hotel. When she knocked, he opened the door, pulled her into his arms, and kissed her fiercely. It startled her. She was scared. But she tried to calm herself. This is what mistresses do, she reminded herself. Before she could even gather her thoughts, he'd pushed her onto the bed, stripped off her clothes, and taken what he wanted. Except for one drunken night at 18, she'd never really had any sexual experience. His rough, urgent movements overwhelmed her. She didn't know how to react, so she just lay there, letting him do whatever he pleased. When it was over, painful and exhausting, he pulled out and released outside her body. He was finally sober now. He noticed her swollen bottom lip, likely bitten during the ordeal. A wave of guilt passed over his face. He kissed her forehead gently. "I'm sorry. Someone drugged me again. I couldn't control myself." Hearing those words, her bitterness faded. Gratitude crept in. Who apologizes to a woman they paid for? "It's okay," she whispered. "I'm going to take a shower. Then I'll drive you back." As she lay there on the bed, she thought about what he'd said. Again. Did that mean this wasn't the first time someone had drugged him? A man like him, clean, composed, wouldn't normally act this impulsively. She hadn't even showered, and he hadn't cared. Another question crept in. What does he do for a living that people would go so far as to drug him? But then again, in this world, whatever job you do, there's always someone who will hate you. After he showered, she cleaned herself up too. Thoroughly. She didn't want her son to see her like that. Like some filthy, shame-covered woman. Life went on. She worked mornings at the factory, spent evenings in the hospital with her son. Hung called occasionally, but not often. So rarely she could count the times on one hand. He had pitied her and allowed her time to be with her child, yet still transferred money regularly to her account. Months passed. One beautiful night, after their passion had ebbed at his place, she hurried to get dressed, preparing to head back to the hospital. He watched her and asked, "Your son's condition, is it that serious? The hospital needs to monitor him 24/7? Still buttoning her blouse, she replied, "No, not exactly." "Then why haven't you brought him home these past few months? He's always at the hospital." She finished dressing and said softly, "Everyone says staying at the hospital isn't good, but honestly, it's better than where we live. The room is clean. They change the sheets daily, and the nurses often stop by to play with my son when I'm at work." They were renting a rundown apartment in a sketchy part of town, paying under $40 a month, utilities included. At that price, they couldn't afford to ask for much. Compared to that, the hospital was a haven. He suggested gently, "Why don't you and your son move in here? This house is big and empty with just me living here." She looked startled. "I can't. This is your home. I'm just someone you're seeing. I can't move in, let alone bring a child." He understood her hesitation and gave a reason she couldn't refuse. "Why not? It's just me here. If you two move in, it'll make this place feel a little warmer. And whenever you need to go to the hospital, I can drive you." She beamed with gratitude. "Really? Thank you." He reached out, tousled her hair. "It's settled then. Done getting dressed? I'll take you now." Give me a second. She suddenly embraced him, her nose stinging with tears. Besides her older sister, this man was the only other person who had ever been this kind to her. A minute later, she let go. All right, let's go. A few days later, she and her son moved into his house. Her little boy had never seen a place so big before. He was amazed. He ran around touching everything with wide-eyed wonder. Though the man didn't seem annoyed, she was on edge, afraid her son might accidentally break something. She pulled him aside and whispered, "Don't touch anything, okay? These things belong to the man who owns the house. If you break something, how will we ever pay for it?" The boy nodded obediently. He never argued when his mother said something. Still, she saw the longing in his eyes as he stared at the pretty things he didn't dare touch. The man chuckled. "It's all right. They're just decorations. No need to be so strict with him." The boy, hearing this, spoke shyly. "Sorry, sir. Mom told me not to touch anything, but everything here is so pretty." The man smiled warmly. "You're a good boy." His words made her both happy and heartbroken. How she wished she could give her child everything he wanted. She hugged him tightly. "Mom will buy you a toy tomorrow, okay?" "Yes, Mom." That night, after the boy had gone to bed, the man was still working in his home office. She brought him a glass of warm milk. "Late nights like this, you should drink milk," she said. "Thanks. Just leave it there." It was late. He was still typing on his laptop, focused. Curious, she peeked at the screen, but with her limited education, the only thing she understood was a bolded title at the top, Business Development Plan. She hesitated, then asked, "What do you do for a living?" "I'm the head of sales at a company," he answered simply. She wasn't exactly sure what that meant, but judging by his lifestyle, nice house, a car, his salary must be generous. Reading her thoughts, he chuckled. "My salary isn't that much, just enough to take care of myself." Then he added with a pause, "And to take care of you." She smiled shyly, flustered. Her gaze drifted to the trash bin nearby and noticed several sheets of A4 paper, one side printed, the other blank. She pointed. "Are those being thrown away? Can I have them?" He blinked, a little surprised. "Sure. I was going to toss them anyway." She gathered the sheets, stacked them neatly, and left the room. Before closing the door, she called out, "Don't stay up too late, okay?" It wasn't until several days later that he realized why she had asked for the papers. She had given them to her son, to draw. How desperate must a person be to save even used paper? After living together for a while, he learned that her son loved drawing, and he was really good at it. The boy would take the used pages and fill the backs with colorful, imaginative pictures. One day, the man got off work early and decided to stop by a toy store. He bought a set of colored markers and a superhero model kit. Smiling to himself, he thought, "San will love this." Somehow, seeing the boy happy made him happy too. Maybe living together really was forming a bond. When he returned home, the place was unusually quiet. She must not have been back yet. He went upstairs to check on the boy. The door to the child's room was ajar. Inside, he heard soft voices. Curious, he peeked in. She was still in her garment factory uniform, clearly just home from work, sitting next to her son and drawing with him. She pointed to a figure in the drawing. "Who's this?" The boy giggled and pointed with tiny fingers. "That's Mommy. And that's Uncle Hung." She gently tapped his forehead. "Why is Uncle Hung in your drawing? Do you like him that much?" The boy asked innocently. "Mommy, is Uncle Hung my dad?" The man standing at the door caught the flicker of sadness that crossed her face, but only for a moment. She quickly smiled at her son. "No, sweetie, Uncle is just Mommy's friend." "Then where's my dad? Is he as handsome as Uncle Hung?" How was she supposed to answer that? She didn't even remember what his father looked like anymore. So she deflected. "Didn't Mommy tell you? Daddy is very far away. When you grow up big and strong like Uncle Hung, Daddy will come back, okay?" The boy looked down, clearly sad. Okay, but even when disappointed, he never complained. He loved his mother more than anything. She glanced at the clock. "Keep drawing, sweetie. I'm going to make dinner. You're hungry, right?" "Yes, Mommy." She walked out of the room and was startled to see the man standing right there, bag still in hand. "Oh, you're back. When did you get home?" "Just now. You weren't in your room, so I came up here." She couldn't meet his eyes, her gaze fixed instead on the toys in his hands. He cleared his throat and said, "Go get changed. I'll go put these away." He stepped into the room and called out, Don't cook dinner tonight. I just got paid. We're eating out. Okay, she replied softly. He walked over to where San was sitting. When San saw him, his eyes lit up with joy. He was about to run up and hug him, but suddenly stopped, remembering something. Instead, he politely greeted him. Hello, Uncle. Hey, buddy. He ruffled the boy's hair. I brought you a toy. Here, do you like it? San's eyes widened with excitement, but he hesitated. He looked unsure, like he wasn't sure he was allowed to accept it. The man gently placed the toy into his hands. It's okay. Your mom said it's fine. Take it. Really? Thank you, Uncle. San hugged the toy like it was treasure. After helping San shower and change, she returned to the room and found the man still there. Her son was on the floor, happily assembling a superhero model. He looked completely absorbed in it. It made sense. San had never played with anything that expensive before. She looked at the man and said softly, Thank you. But next time, please don't buy him anything. It makes me feel awkward. He waved it off. It's just a small gift. I just got my paycheck today. Don't worry, it didn't cost much. She could only nod. That evening, the three of them went out to a fancy restaurant. Sitting there together, they looked just like a family. Other diners stole glances, admiring the scene. A mature, handsome man, a beautiful young woman, and a sweet little boy who bore a striking resemblance to the man beside him. When the waiter arrived with menus, he asked, What would your family like to order tonight? The man skimmed the menu. See anything you like? He asked her. She looked down at the menu, panic rising in her chest. A simple dish cost nearly $40, and the French and American entrees ran upwards of $100. It felt more like jewelry than food. She picked out the cheapest items she could find, hoping not to overstep. But he noticed and smiled, gently taking the menu from her. Without hesitation, he ordered steak, crab soup, and several seafood dishes. She flushed with embarrassment. That's too much. We can't finish all that, she whispered. He chuckled. Don't worry, we'll manage. Then he paused. Wait, are you or San allergic to seafood? She shook her head. No. After the meal, he handed over his credit card and took the receipt without showing it to her. She had no idea how much it had cost. That night, once San was asleep, she returned to her room. The man was lying on the bed, lost in thought. She quietly sat beside him. Are you okay? She asked gently. Not feeling well? He shook his head. She got up onto the bed and lifted his head onto her lap. Let me give you a massage, okay? Every time he felt unwell, she'd do this, and it always seemed to help. Her small, soft hands gently massaged his temples, calming his nerves like a soothing balm. He loved this. The feel of her touch, the quiet, the care. It felt like peace. Silence settled over the room. His eyes were closed. Her hands continued their gentle rhythm. Then he broke the silence. There's something I've been curious about. You don't have to answer if it makes you uncomfortable. Okay. I've never been the nosy type, but ever since I met you, I can't help wanting to know more. About you, about San. It's like something in me won't rest until I understand. He took a breath. Does San's father even know he exists? Her hands paused for a moment, then resumed. She replied quietly, I don't think so. Maybe he really doesn't know. He let out a hum, but she could tell he wasn't satisfied with that answer. She smiled faintly. Would you like to hear San's story? He nodded. And so she began. She told him how San came into the world, but left out the part about being abandoned by her own family. After that life-changing phone call, she had wandered the streets like a ghost, with no one and nowhere to turn to. By some stroke of luck, she met Hui, a kind woman who took her in and let her stay in the tiny apartment she rented. Hui even helped her find a job at a garment factory, where she'd been working ever since. She lived with Hui for a month before Hui got married. Her husband's family was well off and didn't want her working anymore. They wanted her to stay home and help run the family business. Before moving out, Hui generously gave her the apartment and even paid 3 months' rent in advance. I didn't know how to repay her, she said. Even now, we still talk sometimes. She's happy. Her husband's family loves her, and her daughter's polite and sweet. But I never told her that San is sick. I was afraid she'd try to help again, and I don't know how I could ever repay that. The man listened intently, then asked, So, when Hui got married, you were already pregnant? She nodded. Yes, but I didn't know it at the time. I didn't find out until I was 6 weeks along. She continued, After a month at the factory, she'd gotten to know many coworkers, most of them older women who treated her like a little sister. One day, she said, her voice quieter, I saw one of the women looking pale. Her pants were stained with a bit of blood. I thought maybe it was her period and tried to gently mention it, but she just broke down and cried in my arms. After a long while, the woman confessed she'd just had an abortion. She already had 2 kids and couldn't afford another. The decision had broken her. It was her child. How could it not hurt? She whispered. That conversation stayed with her. That night, she went to the clinic. The results hit her like a thunderclap. 6 weeks pregnant. The baby already had a heartbeat. Can you believe it? She said. I was only 18. I thought I had to end it. I even bought the pills. She paused, voice trembling. But right before I took them, I felt nauseous. That's what stopped me. That one moment of sickness, it woke me up. That was my child. How could I end it? What had the baby done wrong? The man listened, his chest tightening. Why, he thought. Why did life give some people everything and others nothing but pain? She was just a girl, 18 years old, still in school, and already carrying burdens she shouldn't have had to bear. And the man who did this to her, who was he? At that moment, she couldn't think of anything. She just broke down and cried. After calming herself down, she called her sister, Hugh. Hugh told her she'd made the right decision. She said, just go ahead and have the baby. When you're ready to go back to work, leave the baby with me. I'll take care of Nam until he's old enough for daycare. And that's how the 2 of them, mother and child, managed to survive until now. Then, just a few months ago, she found out San was sick. At first, she used every penny she had saved to pay hospital bills and cover treatment. But it wasn't enough. Desperate, she took a job working at a karaoke bar. That's where she met him. As she told him her story, her voice grew more somber, so he gently changed the subject. You were good at English in school, weren't you? She blinked, surprised. In fact, English had been her worst subject. No matter how hard she studied, the words just wouldn't stick in her brain. It was as if her mind refused to accept them. Why do you ask? She said. Because San's name means son, right? That really stuck with me the first time I met him. She laughed. Really laughed, for the first time in what felt like forever. It wasn't the forced smile she'd worn for customers at the bar. It came from deep inside her. In 12 years of school, I only learned 3 English words. Yes, no, and okay. The 4th one I remember? Son, she said. He laughed too. It was the first time he'd ever seen her smile so openly. The first time he'd heard her make a joke. He wished she could always smile like that, genuinely happy. He sat up, turned to face her, and looked into her eyes. Trang, he said. It was the first time he'd ever called her by name. Yes, she answered. I want to tell you something important. I'm listening. He took her small hands in his. His voice was quiet but deeply serious. Don't be my lover anymore. Be my wife. She pulled her hands away, startled, but he held on tighter. I'm serious, he said. Please, will you marry me? She was stunned. But my past, someone like me isn't meant to be with someone like you. You're successful, you're from a good family. Why would you want someone like me? He pulled her into a gentle embrace. The past doesn't matter. You have to let it go if you want to be happy. She stayed silent, holding something back. He let go and looked straight into her eyes, his voice sincere. I can't promise the world, but please, let me love you. Let me care for you and your son. She couldn't hold it in anymore. She wrapped her arms around him and burst into tears. Tears of relief, of gratitude, of emotional release. Why are you so good to me? She sobbed. You don't owe me anything. He laughed softly and patted her back. I don't know if I owe you anything, he said, but I believe we met for a reason. It's late. Let's get some sleep, he added. Life is long. I can't make big promises about the future, but right now I want to love you. I want to raise San like he's my own. That weekend, he drove her and San back to his hometown to meet his mother and ask for her blessing. She was nervous and hesitant at first, but he kept reassuring her. My mom is kind. She won't make things difficult for you. Touched by his efforts, she agreed. She felt she should do something for him too. The drive from the city to his home took about 4 hours. San, exhausted, slept the whole way and only woke up once they arrived. His mother had known her son was bringing home his future wife, and she'd been overjoyed. She'd gotten up early, gone to the market, and prepared a big lunch with fresh ingredients. When they arrived and she saw them at the door, her face lit up until she noticed the little boy beside them. She paused, just for a moment. There was something familiar about him. "Hello, ma'am." Trang greeted her politely. "You must be tired after such a long trip." "No, ma'am, I'm all right." She turned to San. "San, say hello to Grandma." His mother nodded and asked, "And this is?" The man was about to speak, but Trang stepped in, bowing her head respectfully. "This is my son, ma'am." For a brief moment, a flicker of disappointment passed through the older woman's eyes, but it disappeared quickly, replaced by a warm smile. "Well then, freshen up and come have lunch. Everything's ready." "Yes, ma'am," he said, and led them to the back to wash up. "See?" he whispered. "I told you she's nice." Trang smiled and nodded. "Yes." His mother didn't treat her any differently the entire day. She was simply a kind hostess. That night, Trang woke up alone in bed. Curious, she got up and walked down the hall. As she passed his mother's room, she overheard their conversation. "Are you sure you really love her? This isn't just pity, is it?" Trang knew eavesdropping was wrong, but she had to know. Did he love her? Or was he just being kind? If it was pity, she didn't want it. She'd rather keep things transactional, money for companionship. At least then the terms were clear. She couldn't see his face, but she heard every word. "No, Mom, I love her. Truly. There's no pity involved." There was a long pause, then a sigh. "All right, I trust your decision. I just worry this might be temporary. If things fall apart, she'll be the one hurt again." His mother had once been a single mom, too. She understood. Her husband had died in a car accident just after their son was born. She had raised him on her own, through every hardship. She knew how much a woman needed a steady hand in vulnerable moments. And the child? She didn't care whose blood he carried. Children, she believed, only needed one thing: to be loved genuinely. And if you loved them, they would love you back like family. Trang stood outside, listening to every word, tears silently falling. A few minutes later, she heard the woman say, "It's late. Go get some sleep. You've got a long drive tomorrow." He said goodnight and stepped out, only to find Trang standing in the hallway, her cheeks wet with tears. "You heard all that?" She nodded. He smiled. "Then come inside. Say hi to your future mother-in-law." She stepped into the room. His mother looked surprised but quickly smiled. "Can't sleep in a new place?" she asked gently. Trang walked over and took her hand. "Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for accepting me." The woman patted her hand warmly. "No need to thank me. As long as the two of you love each other, I'm happy." Trang nodded again and again, barely able to say, "Yes, yes, ma'am." The following afternoon, they had to return to the city. Monday meant work for both of them. Sang seemed to really like Grandma. Before leaving, he even gave her a kiss on the cheek and politely said goodbye. During the entire drive home, he kept one hand on the steering wheel and the other firmly holding hers. In that moment, she felt something she hadn't in over 20 years. Back at the hospital, her son's condition had become critical. Desperate, she turned to the doctor. "Please, you have to save my son. He's all I have left." The man beside her couldn't bear to see her in such distress. He turned to the doctor. "Can I get tested? Just to see if I'm a match?" She looked at him, stunned. He was willing to do anything for her. The doctor raised an eyebrow. "And what's your relationship to the boy?" He shook his head. "None, but still, it's worth a try, right?" The doctor nodded. "You're right. Come with me. We'll run some tests. Sometimes, even strangers can save each other's lives." She gripped his hand. "Are you sure?" He nodded, gently. "It's okay." The next day, during lunch break, the doctor walked into the hospital room with a file in his hand. He found her there, and just as he arrived, the man came in too. He had brought her lunch from his office. The doctor didn't look happy. "Still no word from the boy's father?" he asked. She shook her head. He handed her the test results. "Here, take a look." She squinted at the papers, frowning. "I'm sorry. I didn't go to college. I don't understand all these numbers and scribbles." The doctor pointed at one section. "This level of genetic match? There's no way you two aren't related. He's the boy's biological father." They both froze, confused. The doctor threw up his hands. "If you don't believe it, go get a DNA test. I don't know what game you two are playing, but I'm done." Then he left the room. She stared at the door, stunned. What does he mean?" But the man had already realized. Suddenly it all made sense. That feeling of familiarity the first time he saw little Sang. That odd resemblance to someone from his past. 4 years ago, before his promotion to sales director, he and his team had gone out to celebrate a major deal. It was a wild night, with partners from another company joining in at a karaoke bar. He drank too much. The next morning, he woke up in a hotel bed next to a young woman. He panicked, especially when he saw blood on the sheets. He had planned to wait until she woke up and take responsibility, but then he checked his phone and saw a message from a coworker. "Enjoy your night with the pretty girl." He assumed she was a sex worker. Embarrassed, confused, and not wanting to make things worse, he left all the cash he had in his wallet on the table, fixed his clothes, and slipped away. He never thought about it again. Now, he turned to her. "You said? You met Sang's dad when you were working at that karaoke bar 4 years ago?" "Yes. Why?" He grabbed her by the shoulders. "It was you. You were the girl that night." He held her tightly, maybe too tightly. She gasped. What are you saying?" He whispered into her ear. "I'm Sang's father." She stood frozen. The man from 4 years ago, the one who had unknowingly abandoned her, was him. The same man now offering his hand to pull her and their son out of despair. "You're him?" she said faintly. He nodded. "Yes, I'm so sorry." She broke down in tears, not out of pain, but overwhelmed joy. Sang had a father, and he was going to be okay. The man she thought had disappeared into the horizon had been right in front of her all along. His heart ached. He cursed himself. If only he hadn't gotten drunk. If only he hadn't believed that text. If only he hadn't mistaken her for someone she wasn't. If only he'd waited for her to wake up and done the right thing. Then maybe she and their child wouldn't have suffered so much. His son, ill and untreated because they couldn't afford care. The boy's mother willing to sell herself to save him. And what had he done? Nothing. 4 years living carefree, unaware of their existence. But there are no if-onlys in life, and no way to rewind the past. After a moment, she gently pulled away and ran to her son's bed. Sang was still unconscious. She took his little arm in hers, pressing the spot where the IV needle had pricked him against her cheek. "Sang, Daddy's here now. You'll meet him when you wake up. You won't have to wait until you grow up anymore." But the boy was still unresponsive, deep in sleep. Maybe he didn't hear her. The man stepped beside her, his large hand gently covering both hers and Sang's. "I'm here, Sang," he said softly. Then to her, "I'll talk to the doctor. We'll schedule the surgery. When he gets better, I want to take you both on a trip." She nodded through her tears. "Okay." He kissed her forehead and left to find the doctor. After reviewing the case, the doctor said they could operate as early as Monday. Later, the man called his parents back in the countryside. He knew his mother would be thrilled. She'd always wanted a grandson. Over the phone, her voice trembled with emotion, but she tried to sound calm. After hanging up, he felt a strange relief. What he didn't expect was the call that came later that evening. His mother demanded that he and the woman come home. Surprised, but obedient, they made the trip. When they arrived, his mother was already inside. "You took the bus up here, Mom?" She didn't answer that. She turned to him and said, "That's not important. What's important is that you get down on your knees." He didn't dare disobey her. He knelt. The moment his knees touched the floor, she struck his back with a feather duster, hard enough to make him wince. Then another blow. "Do you even know what you did wrong?" she asked. He said nothing. She struck him again. The woman beside him immediately knelt too. "Please, Auntie, please stop. If there's something wrong, let's just talk. Don't hit him anymore." "Stay out of this," his mother barked. "He's my son. I'll deal with him how I see fit." He turned to her. "It's okay. Let her." His mother was furious, and he knew why. "I sent you to the city to get an education. A college degree. And what did you learn? How to drink yourself stupid and ruin a girl's life." At last, the woman understood everything. She gently reached for the feather duster in his mother's hand. "Please don't hit him anymore, ma'am. Please calm down," she said softly, gently tugging at his arm. "He's not the only one at fault. I made mistakes too." He remained kneeling, head bowed. The sting of his mother's blows was real, but it was nothing compared to what she had endured over the past 4 years. "I'll take responsibility for everything I've done," he said quietly. His mother stood still, the anger in her eyes slowly giving way to something more sorrowful. She dropped her hand, no longer able to continue. "You've let me down so much," she said, her voice cracking. "Only God knows how my hands shook when you called me to confess everything. Part of it was anger at you, but mostly I felt sorry for my grandchild." The first time she saw the boy, she'd felt an inexplicable connection. There was something in his eyes that reminded her of her son when he was small, but he looked so frail, his body thin and pale. And today, she finally knew why. Cancer. The word alone crushed her. Grown adults struggled to endure the pain of chemo and radiation. How was a 3-year-old supposed to survive this? She couldn't just stay in the countryside and pretend everything was okay anymore. She'd packed a small bag, threw in a few sets of clothes, and caught the next long-distance bus to the city. 4 hours on the road, and every second of it felt like her chest was on fire with worry. Back in the apartment, he still hadn't stood up. Maybe his back still hurt too much. She helped him lean against the wall while she turned her attention to comforting his mother. "You must be tired from the trip. Have you had anything to eat? I'll cook something quick for you," she offered. The older woman looked at her, heart aching. Such a young girl, barely in her 20s, and yet burdened with so much pain and responsibility. She reached out, held the girl's hand. "I'm sorry," she whispered. The girl shook her head. "Please don't apologize. If anything, I owe you. But things are getting better now." The older woman nodded slowly, then asked about the child's condition. She explained everything, how Monday was the scheduled surgery, how hopeful the doctors were. "That's good," the woman said. "Let's go to the hospital. I want to see my grandson." She glanced at her partner. "Can you drive?" He nodded, still stiff but determined. "Just grab me a jacket," he said. She helped him change. When she pulled off his shirt, her eyes widened. His back was covered in deep red welts. Her heart sank. How could his mother have hit him this hard? The woman caught sight of the injuries too, her expression wavering. "It hurt me to do it," she said. "But when your child goes this far astray, you have to teach them somehow." They drove to the hospital in silence. When they arrived, the older woman stood beside her grandson's bed, looking at the boy lying there on the stark white sheets. He looked even thinner than before. His arms were bruised from IV needles, tiny limbs poked and prodded far too often. She made up her mind. She would not leave the city until he came out of surgery, safe and well. Before they knew it, Monday arrived. He and the child were wheeled into the operating room at the same time. The day before, he'd tried to comfort her. "San will be fine," he'd said. "He's going to be okay." Now, in the cold hospital hallway, only she and his mother sat waiting. An hour passed. The light above the operating room still glowed red. Then a voice called out from the hallway. "Trang?" She turned, confused. When she saw who it was, her breath caught in her throat. It felt like a dream. Before she could even speak, the woman ran to her and threw her arms around her. "Trang, it is you. I've been looking for you for months." "Sis, when did you get back?" "I can't believe it." Trang whispered. "I thought I'd never see you again." Her older sister hugged her tighter, crying and scolding all at once. "You foolish girl. How could you run away from home and disappear for 4 years like that? Do you have any idea how worried I've been?" That broke something in her. All the pain she'd bottled up for so long spilled out. "You weren't there. No one cared about me. Everyone hated me. Even Dad." It took a long while before their sobs quieted. "Who's in surgery?" Her sister finally asked. "My son," she said softly. Then, remembering the older woman nearby, she added, "This is my sister." The woman nodded. "And I'm Trang's mother-in-law." The two women greeted each other politely. Then, for the first time in 4 years, the sisters sat down and talked. Really talked. Trang told her everything. By the time she finished, her sister's eyes were red. "My poor little sister. You've been through so much. If only I had come home sooner." Trang looked at her. "But why did you disappear too? You were gone for 4 years. Her sister sighed and began her own story. "It was after Aunt Mai arranged my marriage abroad. I married into a wealthy family. They liked that I was honest and simple, so they treated me well. My husband's a good man, 10 years older than me, 37 now. We don't have a fiery romance or anything, but we're kind to each other." Her tone changed. "But his family was afraid I'd run back to Vietnam. They cut off all contact. I wasn't allowed to call or write. 3 months ago, I begged my husband to let me visit home. He finally agreed. And for the past 3 months, I've hired every private investigator I could to track you down. Trang laughed through her tears. All this time I thought you were suffering. I imagined them mistreating you, starving you. Her sister chuckled. Honestly, I was scared at first too. But God was good to me. Oh, I forgot to tell you. My mother-in-law is Vietnamese. She knows what it's like to be a daughter-in-law in a foreign land. She's never been anything but kind to me. She only followed her son's orders about not letting me contact home. Trang beamed. I'm so glad. You deserve this. They both laughed. You're so fancy now, Trang teased. Look at you, all designer clothes and perfect makeup. Her sister laughed. Well, I came back for 4 months, and I've spent 3 of them just searching for you. When do you head back? End of this month. I miss my daughter so much I can't sleep unless I video call her every night. You have a kid already? Yep. She's just over 2. Trang smiled mischievously. Then my son's older than your daughter. When they meet someday, he gets to be the big brother. Her sister burst out laughing. You little brat, sounds like someone's overdue for a big sister spanking. The hallway no longer felt so cold. For the first time in years, it was filled with warmth. By morning, when his mother saw her like that, cheerful at peace, she couldn't help but feel happy too. After all, it had been a long time since the 2 sisters had been reunited. That in itself was something worth celebrating. Hours passed. The light in the operating room finally clicked off. The surgeon stepped out with a tired smile. Congratulations, he said. The operation was a complete success. The 3 of them, she, her sister, and his mother, broke down in tears, overwhelmed with joy. With one hand she reached for her sister's, and with the other she held tightly to his mother's hand. It's over. It's really over, she whispered. In that moment of raw emotion, she called his mother something she had longed to say for 3 years. Mom. His mother and her sister looked at her, then gently nodded. No words were needed. That simple gesture meant everything. After weeks of hospital visits and sleepless nights, baby San was finally recovering. Her sister stayed with her the whole time. They even video called her brother-in-law and little niece back home. Her sister beamed with pride as she showed them off. He's 37, can you believe it? Her sister bragged. He still looks like he's in his 20s. She laughed. Her sister teased, my husband's still more handsome than yours. As her sister's return date neared, the 2 grew clingy again, reluctant to part. But her sister promised that next time she'd bring both her husband and daughter along. San stayed in the hospital for another week before the doctors gave the green light to go home. He was now showered with love from his dad and doted on by his grandma. Honestly, he barely needed his mom anymore. To be fair, she hadn't been feeling great lately. Always tired, no appetite. Everything tasted bland. His mother noticed. Maybe you should go see a doctor, sweetheart. I don't know. Maybe I've just been stressed. Or maybe. His mother paused, eyes wide. Could you be pregnant? That stopped her cold. Could it be? She went for a checkup. When the results came back, her mother-in-law was ecstatic. The more grandbabies, the better, she declared. When he heard the news, he nearly picked her up and spun her around the room. This time, he said, I'll get to see our child from the very beginning, from just a heartbeat in the womb to the moment I hold them in my arms. I'll teach them their first words, their first steps, everything. That night, San slept in his grandma's room. She stayed with him, her belly now holding new life, and couldn't fall asleep. Let's get married tomorrow, he whispered suddenly. She blinked. You mean officially? Yes, marriage license first. Then next month, let's have a wedding. Whatever you want, she smiled softly. We're already living like husband and wife, and we have 2 kids now. A wedding? It's just a formality. He grinned. Let's take care of the paperwork first, then. Okay, I'm good with whatever you decide. He gently placed his hand on her belly. Have you thought about a name? It's still so tiny. She laughed. Let's name them Moon. She looked at him, amused. He chuckled. Didn't you say you only knew 4 words in English? Well, she smiled. I guess now I know 5. Then he wrapped her in his arms, a hug from a husband to his wife. A hug that comforted and healed. A hug that said we made it through. I love you, he whispered. 3 words. Less than 3 seconds to say, but a lifetime to prove.